I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming Ed Moore from the Apple TV Plus limited series Hijack to our TV cinematographers Meet the Experts panel. Ed, I'm going
Thanks
to
for having
admit
me.
right now, I didn't think it possible I'd be riveted to a TV show that spends 7 hours on a plane. It's difficult enough to actually have to be on a plane for that long. You had to stay on a plane shooting this for what, 10 weeks? Don't you get
100, 110 days was the schedule. So yeah, yeah, think about your longest long haul flight in the back seats, and then multiply that by 110 days. So yeah, it was an intense experience, and we like right from the start, the rule was the camera can't be anywhere that the characters couldn't be. So we were sealed in that whole time. We
wow?
we we were allowed out for bathroom breaks.
I mean, don't you get claustrophobic in this contain? You must have to take a lot of breaks during that time to
Well,
stay
it was
sane.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it was intense. I mean, we spread we I'd say maybe 75% of the show is just on the flight, and then we kind of drop into other little precincts and worlds. And the way it was scheduled gave us some breaks, so we did get we were so excited to go on location and get out of the plane for a bit, and then we'd come back in for a long section. But yeah, I mean, in the end, you just start embracing it because what's happening in the story is so kind of thrilling that you're taken along for the ride as we're filming it, and I think creatively just having that restriction, what can you do in that's a world that we all know, and maybe don't love too much, being stuck on a plane for a long time. So how can you make that look interesting? And if that's the only thing you've got, I mean, I challenge anyone to now find an angle on an airline set that we haven't done. But that was kind of fun to really wring out every opportunity that afforded.
I'll bet. But how formidable was it trying to fit an entire camera crew and steady cam and performers and extras in that narrow little aisle with no headroom and navigate a professional shoot? It's tough enough just walking on the plane, and here you're trying to turn it into a soundstage, basically.
Yeah, well, we when we started in prep, we made like an assault course for the operators in at Ari rental house, with the exact dimensions of the narrowest part of the because the set was all still kind of under construction, and we tried to figure out, amazing operator John O'Tyler, about what we might be able to get through. And originally, I wanted to do Steadicam. We did use a lot of Steadicam. We ended up using loads of the DJI Ronin 4D, which was a remarkable tool. And obviously, we did lots of handheld. We were very, cognizant going in that we'd loved the work that had been done on United 93, and we didn't want to kind of go down that route, as it just stands beautifully on its own. So we didn't want to do too much for everything to be handheld. So Jim Phil Smith, director, and I really like the idea that there might be handheld for sort of closer shots, but when the camera was traveling, it was moving relatively smoothly, and it was the action of what was happening around that gave the show its sort of sense of energy.
Not to get too technical, but didn't you use this ILM technology, the volume on this?
The volume, yeah, big V volume, yeah, kind of, yeah. I think it depends how you define it. We certainly, everything you see out of the windows on the show is not a composite. It was LED screens, managed by the team at Lux Machina, who'd done all the beautiful work on Mandalorian. So those guys, in combination with MBS, the facilities company here. So we had all of our cloudscapes, and we had we could fire up different environments as the flight progressed. I'd flown the whole flight in Flight Simulator in prep, so we kind of knew where the light was going to be. So we had kind of the correct views to look at, and then the flight deck set was in a sort of 270-degree volume, and then the flight deck was up on kind of hydraulic platform, so that could move around, and that had a combination of content that the team at Lux had made with it all in Unreal Engine. and we'd also shot plates from helicopters, and so that everything you see, we never really, I don't think we ever used any sort of green screen outside the windows, and that was great just because if nothing else, it felt real on set. You're lighting the set with to a certain extent the real environment. You're not worrying about despill, and all of the offline edits and stuff were just straight away super exciting because you could see what was going on. You're not waiting for VFX down the pipe.
But that's the thing is people don't think about because you're shooting in real time, right? This is supposed to be a 7 hour flight. You're shooting in real time. So we have to account for those subtle changes in sunlight and everything else.
Sure. Yeah, and because it was such a long shoot, it was just prohibitively expensive to sort of put the whole thing on something that could move as the plane turned. So I had to come up with a way to for the light to do the work of the plane moving. So I ended up designing this. We found a kind of motion control winch system from the world of like live events. Had a truss 80-meter long truss length of the plane with kind of moving spotlights for each window, and then as we'd sort of track that up and down as the plane turned in the story, all those lights would kind of come up and down, so you'd get that sense that you do in a plane of hard sort of sun traveling through the cabin. That was a big team effort with lots of kind of specialists brought in, but it was great, and it gave just, even when we weren't doing big turns, just with that system was constantly moving, so you always got a subtle sense, that just a cue to not just the viewers, but I think also there are a huge number of supporting artists and actors and things on that set, and just giving them the sense that it was real just helped for that such a long shoot in one space.
And you also, at the same time, I'm sure, have to guard against looking too art housey or high concept and fancy. You still want it to look like you're just people sitting on a plane, with their heightened version of reality.
Yeah, right. And I think you have to resist as a DOP that we it's lovely sometimes to do those kind of chocolate box images and things, but you have to just your first job is to support the story, and the story we were telling was very much set in like the real world. This could you wanted those first moments of establishing that world to feel exactly like we all do when you get onto a long flight. And there's maybe the sun is a little lower angle than it potentially would be in real life, and there's Idris Elba may happen to find himself in some pretty light, but pretty much that set was lit, without any lighting equipment in the cabin. It was all, I think we had 6,000 DMX lighting control channels. I was outside, with the amazing desk operator Ziggy Jacobs, and we and the gaffer Ben Passal, and we'd just constantly be riding everything as that camera traveled 360 degrees up and down that whole plane.
It must have occurred to you, though, Ed, that you had to be shooting a project on a plane longer than anyone ever has.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was so excited. I'm a huge plane nerd. I'm now learning to fly, so must have not completely put me off. But I was excited, and then I remember in pre-production, the writer I think said to to Jim, the director, like, is Ed okay? Like, does he realize he's got 1,000 scenes to shoot? There's 1,000 strips on this on this aircraft. But as I said at the start, it's just a challenge. Like, where can you put the camera? You haven't done it. Like, you want to. I would like to think that in the future, for anyone else doing a show or a scene on an aircraft, we will maybe give people some ideas.
You mentioned Idris Elba. Uh, how was he to work with? Is he completely insufferable or incredibly accommodating?
Oh, I mean, he's insufferable in that the guy is like ludicrously talented. I mean, he's got so many strings to his bow. The camera loves him. He's like a classic movie star. It's very hard to sort of photograph him badly. I'll be honest. I mean, part of the challenge is that he was slightly playing against type in our show. He's not like the action hero that sort of you might expect him to sort of solve it all very swiftly or be some like ex special forces guy. Like, he's not that. He's a business negotiator really, and he's relatively passive, so you're trying to photograph him in a way where he just didn't look like he would just easily overpower some of the hijackers. But yeah, no, he was a joy. He looks great. He brings just a kind of star quality to the show that I think has brought a huge audience in, and yeah, it was a pleasure to see him.
And finally, as we had mentioned before we started shooting this interview, do you recommend that people watch this on a plane?
Well, we were wondering whether any of the airlines would pick it up for the in-flight into entertainment. I'm not sure if they have, but yeah, sure. Look, if you want to know how to deal with a hijacking situation, like our show's got you covered.
There you go. With that, we're out of time. Ed, good luck to you this coming award season.
Thank you so
Hijack is
much.
currently streaming all 7 of its installments on Apple TV Plus. Thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thank you.